Okay, all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February Real Talk about Real Estate. My name is Michelle, and I'm the marketing lead for the ABR designation. Today, I am joined by Brian Finley from Buyer Agent Brian and Company Real Estate, all the way in Canada. This month, we're focusing on building loyalty and relationships, which can create lifelong clients. As a reminder, we are live, so if you have any questions or just want to say hi, leave us a like or comment on the video. Brian, buyer agency can get a bad rap. Is working with buyer clients that much, more time consuming?
Well, it can be. I guess that's the problem, is it can be. I know when I got in the business, they always used to say you got a list to last and all this other stuff. But I've been an exclusive buyer agency since 1987. So for me, it was a matter of deciding that was going to be my focus, and I really was going to concentrate on it. And so the bottom line is there's a few things that you need to do. You do those things, and then we don't have to worry about basically spending too much time making things happen. We just want things to just kind of flow and go. And so once you learn to do that, then I got to tell you, working with buyers is a lot nicer than working with listings. But the one thing that I always tell everybody is the big difference between the two is when you wake up in the morning and you've got listings out there, you know where the house is. It hasn't moved overnight. But when you're dealing with buyers, you know what? They're excited, they're ready to go, and they are moving. So you have to figure out some ways to put in some nice little pieces that basically keep that communication going and keep that control working for you. And I thought that was kind of what we'd chat about today, and maybe talk about a couple of different techniques that you can use to do exactly that.
That sounds good.
Sense? Okay.
Yeah, sounds great.
So I just, and you and I had chatted once before, I kind of think of all of us in this room, especially since we've got a room full of ABRs, it's like, as real estate professionals. Really, and that's a big word, that professional word. I want you to think about it for a minute in terms of as an athlete. Think about a professional athlete. For instance, the Olympics just got over. So think about an Olympic skier. That Olympic skier, he's practiced for years. The bottom line is he keeps going down this hill and making all these little corrections as he goes. And he keeps doing this run after run after run. So he's always in control. That's what he's looking for, to always be in control. When he gets up there at the starting gate, going for the gold, so to speak, then at that point in time, what he has to do is he has to relax. He has to say to himself, I know I got everything under control. So I can take a big breath and I can relax and I can just ease through this run, and boom, at the end, hopefully for them it's a gold or a silver or a bronze. Or if nothing else, they feel really great at the end of the day with the outcome of the run. And I kind of, say from a real estate professional standpoint, you gotta consider the same thing. You gotta consider, doing these runs and figuring out what you need to do to control everything as you go along. And then when you're ready to work with that buyer, then you should take that big deep breath and just ease into the process, knowing you got everything under control. And the biggest way to know you got anything under control, as far as I'm concerned, and the biggest way to actually build it, is to use checklists. And when you and I were talking, you talked a little bit about checklists, because I guess NAR has like a set of checklists that you can actually purchase. Is that right?
Yeah, so if you've already taken the ABR course, which, we're assuming you have, but, it may have been a while, or, maybe you just took it and you were like, some of these checklists and worksheets were really great from the ABR course. Well, if you go to store.realtor, that's the realtor store, you can actually buy a worksheet, a packet of worksheets about buyer representation that have some of those really great checklists from the ABR course that you can use and repurpose. And, like Brian said, like it's good to have a checklist, good to have a process, set in place.
Absolutely necessary. And it's nice to know that that's out there. That's, another piece that you can get. If you've got your ABR text still available, you still got the book, or you've got it electronically, as everybody has in the last 2 years, It's like you can always go back there and take a look at what the checklists are that are in there as well. I always suggest from a checklist standpoint, I break it down into the whole process. So I don't have one checklist for, buyer walks in the door to buyer gets key. I have checklists for all the different points in the process. And then what I do is you take those runs, you take those practice runs after you've got a successful buyer client and you've gotten them to the key release point. It's good to go back and then look at those checklists and say, I could tweak this, I could add that, I could do those little kinds of things. So I'm a big believer in checklists, but mostly because what it does is it puts you in a position to control. You know what you're going to do. And as much as I know, I've been doing it for a long time, and everybody would say, you ought to remember what you're supposed to do. It's like, no, I gotta go back and look at it every once in a while, and when you do that, then it kind of works. And the other thing about checklists is they need to be authentic. Quite often, like I'll teach, I teach the ABR course, and quite often somebody will say, well, Brian, why don't you give me your checklist? And it's like, because these need to be authentic. These need to come from you. This needs to be the way you work your business, not the way I work my business, because it might be quite different. And what works for you might not work for me. But I got some techniques I want to share with you today that I think would work for anybody. And we'll kind of pick on the different phases and maybe touch on some of those. Is that okay, Michelle?
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's break it down. We're going to assume that you're looking for some techniques in each one of the phases as we go through. So we'll start with the fact that first off, you have to get a client, right? I mean, before we can actually
good start.
Good place to start. So the first thing, you got to get one. And they always talk about working within your sphere of influence and what have you. I get that your friends, your family, and all those kinds of things are part of what you should do. But I got to tell you, you have to learn to take that sphere, whatever it is, however many people it is, and you got to figure out how to expand that sphere. That's really what you want to do. You want to expand the sphere as much as you possibly can. And so part of the way to expand that sphere is just remember all the things they told you. Get out there. You got to get out there. You got to do things. So I go to the ABR network directory quite often. I go in there to see whether there's new ABRs. I go in there to connect with ABRs that I may have talked to before. And I go and look for new ones. So the other day I went in and I looked. My last name is Finley, Finley. See, so now you all know how to spell my last name. And if you go into the directory, basically there's 4 Finleys between the United States and Canada. There's 4 Finley realtors that are ABRs, which is very good for my family name, I think. But out of the 4, I'm the only one with a photo. Okay, the other 3, they don't have a photo. And there's a huge benefit for them to be on that directory. And what they don't recognize is by not having that photo on the directory, it's like people just pass over them. People go to the places where there's the photos. People go to the place where there's the website connections. So I'm just telling you, there's probably some things out there to expand that sphere that you're not using right now. You may be more than an ABR. You may have other designations and certifications. They've all got their lists too. You should make sure your profile's out there. And, it's got the picture and it's got the website and it's all those nice pieces that come in, because expanding the sphere is all about that. And I'll throw in another quick technique. I'm very big on, you got to do video. If you want to exist in this business in 5 years from now, you're going to have to do video. So go out there and do a video. Do a video that, like how to buy a house in whatever your town is. Better yet, go out and do a video of how not to buy a house. And people gravitate sometimes towards the negative. So feel free to use that. But the bottom line is, after you create that video, and I don't care if it's 1.5 minutes or it's 2 minutes or it's 10 minutes, it doesn't make any difference. It should just be you chatting like we're chatting now. And then go to the ABR network and send this link out to people in other places in other states and ask them, please, I'm an ABR. Help me out. I'm trying to move up on that big SEO curve. And how can you do that? Well, you move up on that curve by having people look at your site that are coming from other locations. That's part of the Google, trajectory that they work. So bottom line is you can get all the other ABRs to help you do that. So feel free, if you've got a video, to send it to me, and I'm more than happy to go watch it and like it and just, move things up for you. But that's all about expanding your network, trying to bring the clients in.
Sure.
So let's talk just for a minute about the next stage, which would kind of be the buyer counseling session. And we all know how communication is important, but I think it's not just about communicating. Sometimes it's about the words we use. So for years and years and years, I used the term buyer counseling session. I mean, that's what's in the book, right? But boy, the last 2 years have been like multiple offer scenarios and higher prices and all of the rest of that stuff. And so for the last 2 years or so, I don't call it a buyer counseling session anymore. I call it a buyer strategy session, because we got to, I want them to know, I'm here in the fight with them, so to speak.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid sometimes to look at the words that you're using, and if there's a better choice of words, make that switch. And if you got a good checklist, since we're talking about the session where you're sitting down and talking about buyers, and I listen to the stuff that's going on in the US all the time. So I know there's a whole bunch of stuff about who's paying who and who's getting paid where and all the rest of that stuff. I'm going to tell you, in your checklist, you should have it like in quotes, that it just turns around and says, this is what I do for a living. Okay. I'm good at it. I don't get paid until we succeed. Okay. But this is what I do for a living. And if you say that, then it won't be hard for you afterwards to turn around and talk about compensation and the fact that ultimately, at the end of the day, your buyers are the ones that are bringing all the money to the table. So I mean, one way or another, they're paying you. Whether you say it comes out of the transaction, however you want to say it. Bottom line is they're paying me because I bring value to the transaction. So don't downplay that. Just put it down as in your checklist of the statement I have to make is, this is what I do for a living. They got something they're doing for a living too, so they understand that. Okay. So good. So we've done that. So let's do one or two more. Talk about the viewing process. Two things I wanted to talk about from a technique of the viewing process. So I'm going to assume we already got them signed to a buyer counseling session, and if we're smart, we've already talked to their mortgage provider, so we know if they've been pre-qualified, if they've been pre-approved. Get that mortgage person working on your team by making the phone call and having a conversation with them. But after that, they're out viewing, and I'm going to tell you, buyers, they want to be involved, right? We know that they've been looking at the internet for either weeks or months or maybe years in some cases. Bottom line is they want to be involved in this process. And yeah, we've kind of created all these fancy MLS websites and what have you. But they're going to be involved in the process more than just sitting at their computer. They're going to be driving around, which is great. I want my buyers to drive around. I want them to let me know if there's a for sale by owner out there that I don't know about. So I let them know that they are free to travel and participate in this. But I got to maintain control. Okay. Remember, control, that was the key that I started with. So what I always do at the end of the buyer counseling session, after we've signed the documents, is I turn around and I say, I'm going to give you 7 business cards. And all the ABRs out there, they're all going, oh yeah, because you want them to refer to your friends. Actually, I don't. What I want to do is I use the 7 business cards to remind them a couple of things. One, if you go in an open house, because they will, okay, be courteous. Give the realtor in the open house my card. That way they know. And sometimes what that means is they'll just let you wander through the house on your own, rather than following after you. Bottom line is, you basically give them the card. In my particular area, new home builders do not participate in the MLS. So I need them to have a card when they walk in that show home and say, we'd like to look at properties. Is it absolutely necessary that this agent, who's my agent, be here? And if they say yes, then they know enough to call me, and I know enough to go down and walk through with them. And they'll have to buy me an ice cream or something afterwards, is what it was. And every week, and most of my clients don't see more than 10 or 12 properties, but every time that we do go out, I always ask them, how many cards you got? It's a running joke the second and third time because they don't even wait for me to ask. They just say, "Oh, Brian, by the way, we only have 6 cards," and that's because and that's what I want to know. I want to know where that other card went. What did they see that they didn't like? Or did they see something they did like and they're kind of mulling it over. So it's a way to stay in control. By the same token, it's a way to free them up so they can go out there and do their thing. Yeah, because they got to be involved in the process. That's really what it was.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's just a really cute one, and I won't charge anybody for that. Everybody can use that, and then we'll go from there. So so that's kind of the viewing piece. If we talk about the offer piece, the biggest thing I want to mention as far as when you get down to offers is this is your point when you're going for the medal, just like that skier. Okay. I mean, yeah, you've had nice communications. Yeah, you've talked to them. Yeah, you've helped them find that property. You're feeling really good at that particular point in time. Bottom line is you're at the top of the hill getting ready to go down because the negotiation process and what have you, when we get into offers, especially in markets like so many people are dealing with right now, these multiple offer markets, it's like you got to take that deep breath. You got to know you're in control. And then you just got to relax and follow through, with the checklist, with whatever. Make sure, you're having these conversations with the agents out there that are on the other side. You should always think of negotiation as negotiation is a team sport. Okay. Mm-hmm. What you want at the end of the day is for everybody to feel like they won. And that's possible. You can do that. But, raise those skills as much as you possibly can from a negotiation standpoint. And then bring to bear things like the PSA. I know some people use that as their elective. But pricing strategy is so important when we get into multiple offer scenarios and what have you. Mm-hmm. And then, there's other ways to up your game. You can, one of the things I found very interesting in British Columbia, they've been going through the same kind of scenarios. And I was chatting with an ABR out there. And one of the things that they've done is to resolve this issue about whether to have an inspection or not have an inspection, is they're actually scheduling the inspections before they've actually got a firm deal down. So they've worked out something with the inspectors where the inspectors basically have held 3 hours kind of in advance for them, so that if they go in, they can put a very quick turnaround on the inspection time. Like 24 hours, the inspection will be done. We're not going to hold up your property for that kind of scenario. So
interesting.
Little things that you can do like that to help you win in that marketplace. And then the last thing I guess I just talk about is coming back full circle. And when I mean that, I mean, we kind of started with you've got a unique value proposition of some sort or another that you're trying to put across to your potential clients and what have you. And now you come full circle because you've shown that value, right? You're going to get paid. You are making a living now. This is good. Okay. You've got key release date. And I've been in the business so long. The term for it is real estate orphans. There are just so many real estate orphans out there. And those are people that basically have worked with a realtor, have actually purchased a property. But if you ask them a year later who their realtor was, it'll be like, oh, I'm not sure. I might have his card on the refrigerator. I'm just not, but I think his name was, I'm not sure. Bottom line is don't be that person. Don't create any more real estate orphans out there. There's nothing more important than maintaining contact. And that contact should be really a push at the very beginning. And then you can kind of dwell back down. But I mean, my clients get a key release on a Friday. I'm going to be calling them on Monday to ask how everything went. Okay. And sometimes if you ask an agent why they didn't call them for 4 weeks after they got in there, it's because I don't want to know if anything went wrong. But the bottom line is, you know what, if something went wrong, that's when I want to be there and show my continued value to them, right? So it's like, so don't be afraid to pick up the phone, 3 days after they've been in there and say, how's it going? And then I'll usually call them a week after, and I won't take them like the homecoming gift until like maybe 2 or 3 weeks into it. because they're so busy moving stuff in, my gift is going to get pushed on the side. Much better, I go in. I always like to say to them when I call them on the phone, I'm ready to come see what your furniture looks like in your new house. So it's like, okay, so I just go kind of from there. So yeah, so just a couple of techniques and things that you can use. Like I said, everybody needs to be authentic. You need to do what works and feels right for you. But when it comes to your unique value proposition, if you were standing in front of a buyer who was thinking about using your services and they ask what makes you different, you better be able to answer that question. Don't let them stop you with that one. So make sure you you have some differences that you can throw at them, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, differences that you could throw, differences that you're maybe not throwing, but putting out there, and also updating your profile on abr.realtor, so that, like when Brian was saying, when Brian's looking for agents, or when other agents are looking for referral opportunities, that's a great place to start, and they're going to scroll right by you if you don't have a photo or a bio. So
you're absolutely right, Brian. And probably most of the agents out there are in a market where they know that there are people coming from another market. So like I'm in Edmonton, Alberta. We have a lot of people transferring from Calgary, which is 3 hours south of us. And we have a lot of people going from Edmonton down to Calgary, depending on job changes and what have you. And the bottom line is, I need to know the ABRs that are down in Calgary, and the Calgary ABRs need to know I'm up here in Edmonton. So, so it's all about expanding that sphere. Right?
Totally. Yeah. And then not only is the directory on abr.realtor, but it's also on homebuying.realtor, which is our consumer site. So don't worry, you don't have to update your bio in both places. If you update your bio on abr.realtor, it will show up on homebuying.realtor, our consumer site. And Rebec does some consumer advertising campaigns, and we direct traffic to homebuying.realtor, so consumers will be looking at that directory, trying to find an agent in their area. So
it's cool. It's great.
It's awesome
stuff.
A
great tool. Yeah. It's a benefit of membership, for lack of a better word.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Brian also touched on the PSA course, and he said, it's very important to have your negotiation skills as sharp as possible, especially in this multiple offer market right now. And I do want to say, for those who have not taken the PSA course, the Pricing Strategy Advisor certification course, we're actually going to be offering a live virtual version of the course later this year in October. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, definitely stay tuned for that. If you are ready to take it right now, that's an option too. You can take it online, self-paced online course, 6 hours, or there are some live options across the country. You can check those out at trainingforre.com. And yeah, PSA course, great stuff, great supplement to ABR. Do we have any questions from the viewers so far? We got some great comments so far. Zania says that she likes your buyer strategy session instead of your counseling session. And Zania also said that she took the PSA course but would love a refresher. So Zania, we can talk more. But yeah, it's all great stuff. It's going to be updated in a few months too. So that live virtual course will be the updated version of the course. And yeah, I can't say enough great things about PSA and ABR, I guess. So
there you go.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, Brian, I wanted to thank you again for joining us. And thank you everyone for watching. We hope you found some good tips for making it easy for your clients to work with you. Please join us next month, aka next week, on March 2nd. And we will see everybody next time. Thank you.
Take care. Have a great day, all.